This position illustrates the powers of the rook against the lone bishop on an open board. Since the rook has the ability to attack squares of both colors, it has some strategic superiority when the king is not assisting the bishop. In this case, black's king is totally entombed in a mating net, so it's not helping at all. However, if they could get their king to the center of the board, there's big hope for them to draw. They basically want to run to a corner that's a different color. They would want to run their king to like h1 or a8 in order to make a draw here. Or just stay in the middle and be frustrating. So how do we win in this situation? There's a forced win for white. I think there's maybe 2 variations, but they basically go the same way. So let's see if you guys can solve it. I'll draw arrows for the calculation, whatever you guys think. I really like this puzzle, by the way. Some interesting geometry. Alright, so Jake is comparing rook e7, rook c7, and rook a7. Well, rook a7 drops the rook. The bishop gets to do something. Actually, I thought you would be considering chiefly d7 and b7 because they're on the opposite color. Since the bishop is only able to go on one color, it's usually just common sense wisdom to put your pieces on the opposite color of the bishop. Even if you have no concrete reason to do so, if you have a choice, you know, if you can do the same useful thing from a light square when they have a dark square bishop, that's better. But actually you have another interesting possibility, which is rook f1, which is forcing, right? Basically, in this position, if you can attack their bishop and attack the back rank, you win. Because you can get a back rank mate. So, let's say you start with rook f1. And they play a move like... Let me just pick a random move. Bishop h2. Let's pretend it's bishop h2. What would we do next? Any ideas? We need to basically keep pursuing the bishop until they line up with one of the A through E files. And then we need to skewer the bishop in the back rank. Or double attack it, whatever, pin it, who cares. All right, so rook h1. Let me see. So we do rook h1, and let's say I play like bishop g3. I'm determined not to go in the open. How do we keep chasing it? Okay, so if you do rook h3, and I play bishop f2. It looks like we're almost back where we started. Is there any difference? I think that after bishop f2, maybe it's a little redundant. So let's come back, actually. I think instead of rook h3, we can play rook g1. And the reason it's rook g1 is that after, for example, sorry, I'm going to mess up the colors again. Bishop f2, we can play rook g2, and then they can't hide anymore. For instance, if they play bishop h4, we play king h5 check, and we take the bishop on h4. So after this sequence, they're forced in the open, so this pretty much solves the puzzle. Lichess is going to restart. Wonderful. So I'll play a couple moves here. So now they have to go out in the open. And whatever square they choose, we're going to play a move like this. The most resilient is probably a move where they can control a dark square at the end, like this. But they are eventually going to run out. Like we go here and here. And there's no way they can guard c8, so they're going to just lose. A fine tactical detail. After a move like this, they can hold on for one move longer. Ped Ragnarok, welcome. I was just doing a simple lesson on, first talking about how we know if our pieces are well placed, and then we're going to talk about how we maneuver to better places, how we improve them. In this position, we can just Zugzwang them. After king h8, it's going to be classic mate.